If you go back thousands of years, 6,000 years or more, the way we used to make decisions was with myth, mystery and magic. And we did some pretty amazing things. Built the pyramids, the gods on Easter Island, Stonehenge. I mean, some pretty amazing things happened without the benefit of science. What people didn't know about science then, what they knew was that things were determined by mystery. They were determined by stories and myth and by magic. If you wanted to know how things worked, it was magic. And somebody had that magic. And that's how people made decisions in their local villages and in their local communities. And that prevailed for thousands of years. And that's how human beings lived and thought until the mid-1400s or so, when we had somebody like Machiavelli, many of them, but Machiavelli was one of the early thinkers at that time, who did an interesting thing. He separated politics and ethics. And by separating politics and ethics apart from each other, he taught us how to divide our thinking, how to think of things separately at the same time. You see, up until then, we'd made decisions based on one set of ideas. But now you can make decisions by disaggregating the decision and looking at the political implications or the ethical implications and seeing them as separate. And this became the beginning of rational thinking and logical thinking. So we had Copernicus, René Descartes, Galileo. Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." He said that if I can't measure it, and if I can't validate it scientifically, it doesn't exist. And so what he gave us was a line of thinking and a way of processing mental information. If we couldn't make it concrete, then it wasn't real. And so you think about the way we run organizations, that's the legacy that we have today. If it can't be put into an Excel spreadsheet, it isn't real. But think about life. Think about sunsets. Think about falling in love. Think about being in love, making love. A great story, a symphony, poem. None of these things can be measured. You can't do a pie chart on making love. At least. It's not recommended. So there are some things that just don't fit into the little boxes, the scientific boxes, and they can't be explained that way, but we're very frozen in our thinking. We think that everything has to be this way. Even at lunchtime we were talking about the metrics of what the future of organizations will look like, and the metrics we tend to use are shareholder value and the price of the stock and how we pay dividends and things like that, the metrics. But what about some of the things we can't measure? And what about the beginning of our thinking around things we can't measure, so that we start to grow our capacity to accept the idea that there are things that we will never measure, and maybe we're not meant to measure, that are larger than this little narrow confine in which we run businesses. So the age of reason, and I call it the age of illusion because it's, of course, an illusion that everything that's measured is real, but it's the age of reason, and logic, and rational thinking. It's been very beneficial. It has given us so much. It has rewarded us materially in so many ways and provided us with the lifestyles and the standard of living that we enjoy so much. But there is more. Albert Einstein said, "I did not discover relativity by rational thinking alone." And the story of Einstein is very interesting. He was asleep one day in a field, and he was watching the sun through his half-closed eyes, half asleep. And he imagined what it would be like to ride on the sunbeams without time and space. And he got excited about the theory of relativity, and he rushed back to Princeton to do the research. But it wasn't science that gave him the idea. It was a dream, a reverie that gave him the idea. The genius didn't come from research, it came from his brilliant thinking and his capacity to simply let his mind wander. The unmeasurable, the mythical, mystical, and the magical. So we live in an age of consciousness, growing consciousness, and many of us are asking questions about what is larger than the small, narrow construct of the mathematics and the metrics that we all work with every day. What could be bigger than that? I don't know if you're familiar with this book, Messages from Water. It's the work of a Japanese photographer and scientist. His name is Masaru Emoto. And what he's done is he takes water and he freezes the water into crystals. And then he takes pictures of the crystals. Now you know that under intense cold, the water starts to take a different shape. And so what you see here is the crystals of water that have been exposed to the words, "You make me sick, I will kill you," pasted on the bottle. So what he's done is he puts the water in a little bottle and pastes that label on the outside. And then he takes the same water and puts it in another little bottle, and he pastes different words on the outside. And what happens when he measures it under the microscopic freezing condition camera is that the molecules change from the energy of the thought. Take a look at the picture. These are crystals of water that have been exposed to words, "Thank you," pasted on the bottle. Same water. So what's happening is that the same water has the different energy in it, and the molecular structure of the water is changing. The implication of this for us is that we are 70% water. And the world is 70% water. So, what we are doing when we are changing our energy with each other is changing the molecular structure of who we are. Now, you may start thinking at this point, I thought this guy was from Canada. He sounds like he's from California. And you may be coming from a place of metrics, and mathematics and measurement, and if it can't be measured, then I don't believe it. But you have to start letting go of some of that, because this is scientifically proven. Let's give you another example. Let's think about the 11th of September, where you were. It doesn't matter where you were. At that moment, you probably felt the same pain. Whether you were in Ottawa, or whether you were in Montreal, or New York, or California, or Russia, it wouldn't matter. Because we are one, and we all felt the same pain. That's an example of our consciousness, the fact that we are one. Now, an interesting experiment has been done. If you look at this graph, this is work that's been done at Princeton. These are random number generating machines, 60 of them, placed all over the world. Most recent one was placed yesterday in the Philippines, and one's going in next week in the Netherlands. But all over the place in remote areas in these countries. And what they do is they spit out random numbers. Very quickly, they spit out many numbers per second, O's and ones and zeros. And over a period of time, they start off by being many more of one or the other, but over a period of time, they even out to the point where they're exactly even, because there's so many of them coming out. There's only two numbers, and they start to be even. The even line is on the bottom here. And what they are measuring here is conscious energy. What they want to know is, when something dramatic happens in the world, does the concentration of human energy have any effect on the random number generating machines around the world? They're not in any way connected to any electromagnetic fields. They're not manipulated by people. All the data is coming to the computers at Princeton without any human intervention. And what I want you to see is how they spiked on the 11th September. The major events of the world, when human energy and consciousness converges, when billions of people are thinking about the same thing at the same time, causes, one theorizes, the number generating machines to start doing different number generations than they would normally do. Now, if you look at the actual day of September the 11th, look at how the number generating machines change their patterns. When the first of the World Trade Center towers was struck, when the second World Trade Center collapsed, spikes in the performance of these random number generating machines. So these are the kinds of things that are in our awareness that cause us to realize that there are more things going on in this planet than simply the little numerical analyses that we tend to do about our lives and about people. So let's start from there and open our thinking up to the possibilities of a much larger idea.